Hey YouTube, just wanted to record a little video here to show how you can graph some of your solar equipment and BMS equipment. This is based on the ANT-BMS, which has several variations, I guess. I'm currently using them in a 16S configuration on some Life EPO4 packs. And there's 3 of those listed here. There's some information on changing the MAC addresses, and I can share some of that in later videos. But this will show you in this video how to get at least one of these into Grafana. And the first part of that is coming up now. All right, so this is a file that you can download. I'll leave the file link in the description. That'll help you out a little bit in putting in some of these commands. Don't try to do too many at once. It might get hung up if it's waiting for something. And you'll see here you'll run an update so you can update the packages that you just added keys for. And I'll fast forward through this part here a little bit where we're installing some packages. It's going to take a while. All right, a few things to note here while it's scanning. There are two different devices, an ANT-BLE device and then a BLE device. And the BLE device, the BMS device is the one that you can actually connect to. The ANT device doesn't seem to allow you to connect to it, or it's more for low power devices like mobiles and stuff like that. So you'll notice that this is a specific hardware address to mine. Yours is probably, if it's default, going to say AABBCCA1 something. But I've changed mine here, obviously, so I can communicate with all of them independently. And this is actually going to run this script that I copied in. And you'll see here there's some zeros in the center. Those were fields that I really couldn't use because they changed their type a lot, which caused the database to not want to accept the input. So if you change database fields once there's already data in there, it won't allow that. So um, here I'm using chronograph, which is just helpful to get the database created because Influx doesn't really have an API. And so I'm going to skip through a few of these other parts here, which I don't really need. All I really need chronograph for is to create the database, and there it is, created on the local host. That could be on another server. These pies get a little corrupt over time, so you may want to store your data on an actual machine. Mine's actually being stored on an Atom processor with a solid state drive and a gigabit network connection. So you may want to move this. This is just for demonstration for now, but you'll see here there's a lot of extra numbers there for 16 cells. The top three were actually the min, max, and average voltages. So you're going to want to grab the very bottom one there, which was 16, and then work your way up to 1. And then those other 3 readings were some other information that you can graph if you want to. This is just the first part of this series to show you how to start getting data in. Nodered can be started on a regular basis. I just didn't start it here because I don't want it running all the time. And you'll see you can actually just paste the code in once you've added the InfluxDB connector. And you do that here. So you'll add this, install it, and wait for that to configure. And then you can click that same, I call it a hamburger menu in the upper right corner to import the flow. And you'll see me do that here in a second. I'm using WordPad, by the way, to copy and paste all this stuff. It's not exactly easy. I don't really have any code markup language tools on my Windows box here. So here we'll import that JSON directly. And you'll see it imported into the second tab. I'm not really sure why it did that, but it's fine. It doesn't really matter. On the left is the timestamp. That determines how often it's going to run. 17 seconds seems about the quickest you can run it. And here you'll see where I'm connecting to the InfluxDB, and data 1 is a measurement tab, and you'll see that later in chronograph after we start getting some data. That file has to be in that examples directory for whatever reason, for whatever calls it's making. I'm not a coder. I can put stuff together and make it work, but I can't really write it very well. So, and you'll see here you do have to set up that RFCOM in order to get this to work. Since I had just rebooted, that needs to be set up. Sometimes you'll see that might get a little hung and you may have to run that. I would advise you don't run it on a regular basis. I've seen my Pi lock up several times if I tried to code in an automatic restart of that, but it doesn't seem to happen too often now that I have the timing down right for waiting for that serial communication to come through. And you'll see there's a lot of extra information in that column there that you can pull from in order to graph at the top. Here are those columns that we just saw. And if we go all the way down 7, column 7 is current, I believe, and this thing is actually backwards. So when it's drawing power, it's in the positive, and when it's got power going in, it's in the negative. You're going to see it error a few times here as well because I also have my production systems pulling from this on a regular basis, so it interferes with the communication occasionally. And I think you would probably have to set up do a maximum of 3 of these BMSs per Raspberry Pi 3. This is running on Raspberry Pi 3A and a 16 gigabit card, but you will fill that up pretty quick. And as discussed before, there's some advanced methods for installing this on an SD card and not using swap files and stuff like that so that you can increase the longevity of these things. They will run for a while this way, but inevitably it will crash. It always happens, and it's always after you get your dashboard set up exactly the way you want it. And here you'll see I'm just adding, that would be cell 16. I'm counting backwards. I accidentally grabbed 2 here. And you'll see me come back and remove 2 later because that's something I didn't really want to grab at the moment, but so I wanted 27 through 12. I will make another video here showing you how to make this a little more visibly appealing in Grafana. Chronograph is great for just getting started and kind of visualizing what you're getting in. But then once you actually have data coming in, Grafana is much better, more robust, a lot more things like that video pane that you saw viewing my my shunt, since I don't have a data accessible shunt at the moment. And wait for part 2 to come up.